Okay, we're back. Ray, thanks for being with me. Happy Thanksgiving or post Thanksgiving. Hopefully you had a
Yeah,
good dinner with everybody.
yeah, absolutely. It was a great day in Las Vegas. The sun was shining all day, and it wasn't quite golf weather, but it was close.
Oh, yeah, a little cool from golf weather, right?
Yeah, exactly.
So
So
today
we're,
we're going to talk about corporate culture because that's both you and I, we've been talking about this. Get a lot of questions about, what does a corporation mean? Who do I work for? How do I do this? As they're transitioning from law enforcement into the private sector, it seems a little scary. And one of the things that I've always start with is kind of the hierarchy of a corporation. And I'm not going to get into all the kind of the nits and gnats that I usually do with somebody who's a candidate, but the way I describe it to them, Rand, and I'll be curious to hear your thoughts on this, is I talk to them about, hey, a law enforcement agency works for a government. The government is formed very similarly to a corporation. Instead of the CEO on a corporation, maybe you have a mayor or a governor or something like that, city council, and they're your leadership. And then it kind of all the component parts of a corporation do exist in municipal law enforcement entity. You've got an operations folks, you've got legal folks, you've got finance folks, and so on. But a lot of folks just don't even understand the hierarchy or the structure of a company when they're coming out of law enforcement. But I don't know if you get that question similar to that.
yeah, so people see all these job descriptions that are out there floating around on Indeed and all the other networks that are out there, and usually when I talk to someone the first time when they're looking, and you and I have thought about this, is they say, "What's the salary?" It's like I have no idea. It could be
Yeah.
$1, it could be $100,000, and I say you don't even know who the company is or what they do or how they make money and so forth and so on. So it's kind of a fun discussion about why don't maybe you don't even want to work there. Maybe you have different values than they have or what have you. So it's just trying to position yourselves. And as we were talking earlier about starting early, we talked a lot about starting early the last time, but part of starting early is assessing yourself, what your skill sets really are, and how do you display those, and how do you talk about those, so that when you have a conversation with a hiring manager, you can talk about a little bit about the company because that's where they work, and they're usually very proud of that. So I remember a while ago I was with a former federal agent. I'll just leave that. And we were visiting a client in Chicago, and we were barely in the seat when he's talking about what we were trying to sell. And I kind of interrupted him, and I said, "Hey guys, do we have time to get a cup of coffee where we could chit chat a little bit, get to
Build a
know each other?"
relationship.
Yeah, yeah. And really, that's what it's all about is having a bit of understanding. And I happen to be a Wall Street Journal junkie, and I never was like that until I realized that I had to understand the client business as well as I understood what I do. And uh, people always accuse me of selling, and I said I don't sell anything. I have nothing to sell. I build relationships, and it's actually pretty funny today because people are, as you know, reaching out every second with an email, can you check my calendar below and let's set up a call? And I'm thinking, I don't even know who you are. And what if we have a relationship? And yeah, I'm in 100%. But it's kind of interesting to watch the dynamics of all of that.
Yeah.
But yeah, corporation, all that information about a corporation is online. It's there to be found. And if you're applying for a job and you haven't done some research on who they are and what they do and how they make money, as I've said a few times, you're remiss in that. That's because remember, the only goal about sending an application is to get a personal interview. You have to
Okay.
remember that. You've got to get around that system, and we talked about that the other day. So having all those things in your repertoire, in your playlist, is very important.
Well, and you talked last time about checking the 10K of these if it's a publicly traded company, right?
Yeah.
And you look at the risks and you look at what they're doing to mitigate those risks, and if that falls within the job description that you're applying for, you might want to know that. You might want to know that they have risks in certain countries and or they have cyber risks or whatever. And are they putting any money into that? Because
Yeah.
to your point about being a former federal agent, I obviously talk to a lot of federal agents, and they don't quite understand that concept that I might go someplace and there might be tons of risk in that job, and not just with the job, but I'm saying with the role of that job, and the company is not doing anything to mitigate that risk. They just want a figurehead in place to, when there's a problem, we'll call you, but we're not going to give you any money to your program to help mitigate those risks.
Yep.
If you aren't aware of that ahead of time, those are the questions you should be asking in the interview. What is not just what the salary is, you'll get there, but what are the risks in this role? And is there a budget? Is there a head count? I've seen people land at major global companies, and their physical security budget was almost non-existent. It was enough to cover their contract security folks. Nothing for insider threat, nothing for business continuity, so on and so forth. So a lot of folks go into these roles thinking, oh, I'm going to hold the title of CSO or VP of security. Well, that's great. You can be a security director in a mall, or you can be a security director in a corporation. Those are two different things, and those are two different salaries. To your point about salary,
Yeah.
so going in there with your eyes wide open, finding out as much as you can about the company, and educating yourself about their industry as well. What you said was right on point.
Yeah. So I have a very close friend, and he'll know who I'm talking about if he watches this, and it will be him. But he was recruited some years ago, heavily recruited to go to, kind of the number one run company in that particular sector. Very visible name and what have you. And he kept pushing him back because he had a good job, and he finally caved in. But he negotiated 10 things, and seriously, 10 different things that he wanted to accomplish based on his research that he had done in the first year. So everybody was in agreement. So good and all, he starts, and a couple of items get knocked off the list, and then a couple of more items get knocked off the list. And after he got past 5, he said, "This place isn't for me." And he lasted about, I'd say, 4 or 5 months. And fortunately, the job that he left hadn't been filled yet. So he went back to his old position. So could he have figured that out beforehand? Probably not. But he had done as much research as you potentially could do. So, this is a negotiation, is the hiring process. It's bartering, and it's something for something. So those are all the things that you need to do. And then you have to decide if this is for you and your family and your potential career in your second career, maybe. So it's serious stuff, and hopefully you'll do hard work, and you'll listen to Scott, and don't listen to me, but listen to Scott, and you'll find that right job, and then everybody will be happy.
That's right. Well, we have more coming up. So we were telling people to stay tuned and send us great questions, and we'll see you in the next segment.